But the spark left behind on Karatal was no ordinary life form. Deep within Earth's advanced biochemical defense lab, Dr. Ramirez and her team studied the strange, shifting entity. It pulsed with an otherworldly energy, neither fully organic nor mechanical. No known science could explain its existence. They called it alpha genesis. At first, it remained dormant. But one night, while working alone, Ramirez witnessed it pulse with a blinding light. In that moment, a vision burned into her mind. A galaxy devoured by biomechanical life. Planets transformed into living machines. Entire species twisted into hybrid monstrosities. At the heart of this nightmare floated a colossal structure, an ancient machine of impossible design. A name echoed through her thoughts: the Singularity Core. When the vision faded, Ramirez knew the truth. Xyrek Ascendant was only the beginning. Something older, far more powerful, was awakening. Weeks later, the Intergalactic Council detected a signal from the Veil of Nyx, a region of space where no light had escaped for millennia. Historical records linked it to the Architects, an ancient race said to possess the power to reshape reality itself. Ramirez led a strike mission aboard the ISS Valkyrion, Earth's most advanced research vessel. As they crossed into the veil, reality twisted around them. Time fractured, and ghostly voices echoed through their systems. At the center, they discovered the Crucible, a vast, dormant station larger than any known world. Its surface glowed with faint, silver patterns. Guided by pulses from Alpha Genesis, Ramirez entered the core chamber. Suspended within was the Singularity Core, broken and unstable, radiating raw, uncontrollable energy. As she approached, the station came to life. A voice, ancient, cold, filled the chamber. The Architects are gone, but we remain. The Singularity Core pulsed violently, sending shockwaves across the galaxy. Dormant Architect machines reactivated on distant worlds. Something had begun, a process older than civilization itself. Ramirez tightened her grip on Alpha Genesis. "We faced worse," she whispered, but deep down she knew. A new war had already begun. But the pulse from the Crucible was only the first warning. Across the galaxy, ancient Architect systems began to stir. On remote colonies, machines long buried beneath the surface tore free, reshaping the environment into biomechanical landscapes. Entire planets fell silent as unknown forces spread like an infection. The Intergalactic Council declared a state of emergency. Every major species mobilized their fleets, but against technology older than their civilizations, conventional weapons were useless. At the heart of the chaos, Dr. Ramirez worked tirelessly to unlock the secrets of Alpha Genesis. She believed it held the key to stopping the Architect's awakening, but the entity remained unpredictable, shifting its form each time they tested it. One night, as Ramirez pushed the entity beyond safe limits, it reacted, sending a new vision into her mind. This time, it wasn't a future of destruction. It was a map. The coordinates led to a forgotten star system on the galaxy's edge, Epsilon 9, where Architect activity had once been strongest. The Council, desperate for answers, authorized Ramirez to lead an expedition. Aboard the ISS Valkyrion, Ramirez and her elite strike team plunged into the uncharted void. Upon arrival, they found a dead world encased in a metallic shell, an entire planet converted into a colossal vault world. The surface was a graveyard of failed experiments, twisted remnants of biological life fused with machine. At the center of the vault stood a monolithic structure, its walls covered in glowing Architect runes. As Ramirez approached with Alpha Genesis, the runes flared to life. A doorway, sealed for eons, slid open. What lay beyond was beyond comprehension. An Architect control chamber, still active after millions of years. In its center was a throne-like interface. Ramirez hesitated, knowing the risk, but if the Architects had left answers, this was where she would find them. She placed Alpha Genesis into the interface. The chamber shuddered, and a figure, tall, ethereal, and unlike any life form known, emerged as a holographic projection. Its voice was neither hostile nor kind. "You seek to stop the Singularity, but your kind is not ready." The projection revealed the truth. The Architects had not vanished. They had ascended to another plane of existence, leaving behind the Singularity Core to reshape lesser species in their image. And now, the core had begun its final sequence. In 3 galactic cycles, every organic life form would either evolve or be consumed. Ramirez clenched her fists. "Not on my watch." The countdown had begun. And humanity's only hope lay in unlocking the full power of Alpha Genesis before the galaxy fell to the will of the architects. But unlocking Alpha Genesis was a gamble with no guarantees. Back on the ISS Valkyrian, Ramirez and her team worked relentlessly to decode the architect interface. Each interaction with Alpha Genesis pushed it closer to a new state, one neither fully organic nor mechanical. Yet the galaxy was already unraveling. In the Andara system, a planet-wide city was consumed overnight, its inhabitants transformed into biomechanical hybrids, their minds enslaved by the pulse of the Singularity Core. Entire fleets vanished near architect relics, leaving only distorted distress signals behind. The Council grew desperate. Some called for total planetary quarantines. Others whispered of doomsday weapons, tools powerful enough to burn entire sectors to prevent further contamination. But Ramirez knew destruction wouldn't save them. Her breakthrough came unexpectedly. As Alpha Genesis interacted with the Vault's interface, it generated a complex genetic sequence, a living key, encoded with architect command protocols. If they could stabilize it, it might give them direct control over the Singularity Core itself. But there was a cost. The process required a living host, one who could withstand the strain of merging with architect technology. The simulations were clear. The host's mind and body would be irreversibly altered. No one else on the team was compatible. Ramirez made her choice. With no time to waste, she entered the catalyst chamber, where Alpha Genesis pulsed in its containment field. As the living key bonded to her neural pathways, pain seared through her entire being. Every nerve burned as her biology fused with ancient architect code. Her vision fractured, showing her the galaxy as the architects once saw it. She felt the pulse of the Singularity Core across 1,000 worlds. And beyond that, something darker stirred, an intelligence woven into the core itself. A voice deeper and colder than anything before echoed within her mind. "You are no architect. You cannot contain us." Ramirez clenched her fists. "Watch me." When the transformation was complete, she was no longer fully human. The living key had rewritten her at a molecular level, turning her into a hybrid of flesh and architect code. Her new abilities granted her a direct link to the core's systems. But the core was still accelerating. Soon, the galaxy would be beyond saving. With the Valkyrian at maximum speed, Ramirez led her team to the final battleground. The Nexus Gate, the core's central command station buried deep within the void. If they failed to shut it down, nothing could stop the architect's final evolution. As the ship emerged from warp, they beheld the impossible. An entire star consumed by architect machinery, its energy fueling the last stage of the Singularity sequence. Ramirez, no longer bound by human limits, prepared to face the heart of the architect's legacy. And the galaxy's final battle for survival had only just begun. At the edge of the dying star, the battle for the galaxy began. The Nexus Gate loomed before them, a colossal structure of shifting metal and radiant energy, suspended in the heart of the architect machinery. Pulses from the Singularity Core rippled through space, accelerating the transformation of countless worlds. Aboard the ISS Valkyrian, Ramirez stood in the command chamber, her mind now fused with Alpha Genesis. She could feel the core's pulse, its raw, ancient intelligence pushing toward a singular goal: the extinction or assimilation of all organic life. The Council's joint fleet arrived, human warships flanked by Xylarian dreadnoughts and Tanari biocruisers. But the architects had prepared for this. As the fleet moved into position, the Nexus Gate awakened. Out of the swirling void emerged the Sentinels, massive biomechanical constructs, each one a perfect fusion of flesh and machine. Their forms shifted fluidly as they unleashed beams of destructive energy, tearing through the Council's forces. "Deploy the Omega Lance," Ramirez commanded. The Valkyrian's experimental weapon, a hybrid of human and architect technology, powered up, its core blazing white-hot. But the Sentinels adapted too quickly. Every strike was countered. Conventional weapons were useless against beings crafted by the galaxy's oldest intelligence. If the Nexus Gate wasn't shut down from within, nothing would survive. "I'm going in," Ramirez said, her voice steady despite the chaos. She knew this was her fight alone. Only her fusion with Alpha Genesis could interface with the core directly. Her team protested, but she was already moving, stepping into the quantum bridge, a teleportation system linked to the gate's outer layer. When she emerged, the world shifted. Inside the Nexus gate, reality bent and twisted, gravity warped, and time seemed fractured. Ramirez's hybrid senses allowed her to navigate the impossible space. She felt the core's consciousness reaching for her, testing her. A deep, resonant voice echoed through the chamber. "You are not welcome. Leave or be consumed." Ramirez pressed forward. The core's energy flared, creating spectral projections of the architects, tall, ethereal figures who regarded her with cold indifference. At the heart of the chamber, she found it. The core's control nexus, a swirling sphere of pure architect code. But layers of defensive energy blocked her path. She placed her hand on Alpha Genesis, letting it sync with her altered mind. This was her only chance. She would either rewrite the core or die trying. Taking a breath, Ramirez stepped into the light, and the final battle for the soul of the galaxy truly began. As Dr. Ramirez stepped into the core's light, the Nexus trembled. The energy surrounding her shifted, an endless sea of architect code, ancient and alien. Alpha Genesis pulsed within her, a beacon of human defiance against a force older than recorded history. The core resisted. Tendrils of living energy lashed out, attempting to unravel her hybrid form. Visions surged through her mind, entire civilizations reduced to biomechanical husks, galaxies consumed in an endless march toward perfection. But Ramirez pressed on. She was no longer just human, she was something new. "I am not here to be consumed," she said, her voice resonating through the Nexus. "I'm here to end you." Drawing on the full power of Alpha Genesis, she extended her will into the core systems. Architect defenses surged against her intrusion, shifting firewalls of quantum code meant to crush any lesser mind. But Ramirez was no lesser mind. She rewrote the interface, bending architect protocols to her will. Slowly, the layers of defense peeled away, revealing the core's heart, a crystalline sphere of infinite complexity. At that moment, the core spoke again, its voice no longer cold, but something far worse. "You seek to defy the eternal cycle, but you are too late." Across the galaxy, architect systems reached their final stage. On hundreds of worlds, organic life was dissolving into pure data, absorbed into the architect machine mind. The countdown was nearly over. Ramirez knew she had one chance. With every ounce of her strength, she poured Alpha Genesis into the core, reversing the transformation algorithms. If she could trigger a cascade failure, the entire system would collapse. Pain seared through her body as the architect code fought back, trying to consume her consciousness. For a brief, terrifying moment, she felt herself slipping, becoming part of the singularity. But then something else awoke within her. The fusion of human will and architect technology, a new intelligence, something neither machine nor flesh. Alpha Genesis Ascendant. "You are wrong," Ramirez whispered. "We are not too late." With one final push, she shattered the core's central control sequence. Across the galaxy, architect systems froze, then began to disintegrate, returning stolen worlds and species to their original forms. The sentinels guarding the Nexus Gate collapsed. The pulse of the singularity faded into nothingness. Ramirez staggered back, barely holding on to consciousness, but she had done it. The architect threat was over. But deep in the void, where no light could reach, something else stirred, a shadow of the true architects, watching and waiting. But Ramirez knew it wasn't truly over. As the Nexus Gate collapsed behind her, the ISS Valkyrion's quantum bridge pulled her back to safety. The ship trembled under the aftershocks of the core's collapse, but the architect systems were failing. Across the galaxy, the nightmare was ending. Her team rushed to meet her in the command chamber. Captain Drenner's voice crackled over the comms, strained but triumphant. "Confirmed, architect systems are collapsing across all sectors. We did it." Ramirez barely heard him. Her vision blurred, her mind still echoing with the core's final words. Something within her had changed. Alpha Genesis was no longer just a tool. It had fused fully with her being. "Are you okay?" Lieutenant Solis asked, his voice tight with concern. "I'm still me," Ramirez said softly, "but not entirely." In the following weeks, the galaxy tried to rebuild. Once dead worlds flourished again, freed from the grip of architect corruption. The Intergalactic Council declared Ramirez a hero, the savior of organic life. But behind the celebrations, a shadow lingered. Deep inside, Ramirez could feel it, the faint pulse of architect code still intertwined with her DNA. At night, when the galaxy was quiet, she heard whispers from the void. The architects were not gone. In a hidden research facility on Lyria Prime, she worked alone, unlocking the last fragments of the Nexus's data. What she found chilled her to the core. The Singularity Core was never the true threat. It was only a gatekeeper, a test for emerging civilizations. Beyond it lay something far worse. The surviving data spoke of a place called the Abyssal Reach, where the true architects had vanished, and where they would one day return. And in the darkness, they were already awakening. One evening, as Ramirez reviewed the final encrypted sequence, Alpha Genesis stirred. A single word flashed across her terminal, one she had never seen before. Harrowing. The lights dimmed. Her heart pounded. Whatever was coming next was beyond anything the galaxy had faced. She stood, her resolve unshaken. Humanity had faced impossible odds before, and won. If they're coming back, she whispered, we'll be ready. And somewhere beyond the edge of known space, something ancient turned its gaze toward Earth. The galaxy trembled as the harrowing began. From the depths of the abyssal reach, the black rift expanded, devouring entire star systems in its cold, silent hunger. Ships sent to investigate vanished without a trace. What returned were only fragments of corrupted signals, whispers of shadows moving between stars. On Lyria Prime, Dr. Ramirez stood alone in her hidden lab. The architect code within her had evolved beyond anything the galaxy understood. Alpha Genesis pulsed faintly beneath her skin, binding her to the alien intelligence that now stirred across the void. The last transmission from the rift was clear. The harrowing is upon you. Submit or be erased. The Intergalactic Council had no answer. No weapon in the known galaxy could stop a force older than time itself. But Ramirez knew there was still one chance, hidden deep within the reach. I'll go, she said, her voice unyielding. I'm the only one who can. Aboard the ISS Valkyrian, its systems fused with architect technology, Ramirez prepared for the impossible journey. Beyond the rift lay the heart of the harrowing, a place where the architect's final weapon waited to judge all life. As the ship's engines ignited, she sent one final message to Earth. If I fail, there will be nothing left to save. With that, the Valkyrian plunged into the darkness, toward the edge of existence itself, where humanity's last hope faced an ancient and merciless power.